Welcome to Photos and Travel, a show that introduces you to fascinating places around the world. Please welcome our host and tour guide, Jonathan Van Bilsen.
One of the most spectacular destinations I've ever visited is the northern part of India. Steeped in history, unbelievable scenery, and some of the friendliest people I've ever encountered, this part of the world certainly opened my eyes to a different culture. After these messages, we'll explore this magical land.
Thinking of indoor or outdoor signs? At PP Print, we can help with so much to offer. Just ask. We've got you covered. PP Print, where experience pays off.
Pet Value has a fleet of services to help you and your pet live their very best lives. Visit Pet Value Port Perry for all of your pet's needs. Pet Value, your pet, your store.
Welcome back. India is a country with a population of 1.4 billion. Its history dates back thousands of years, and its culture is very different from what most people in the Western world are accustomed to. One needs to spend months, if not years, to fully visit the spectacular sights. However, today we're going to give you a snapshot of the capital, the state of Rajasthan, the temples of the east, and we'll even go tiger hunting in the north. My hair cut short and travel gear packed, I began my adventure with a 9-hour flight to Zurich, Switzerland. From there, I continued on another 9-hour flight to India's capital of Delhi. I met my driver, Muna, and began my adventure with a visit to Raisina Hill, once the home of the Viceroy of India. It is now the residence of the President. Delhi, although India's capital, is the second largest city in the country with a population of 20 million. This iconic structure, representative of colonial influence, is the India Gate. It is a commemorative structure dedicated to the Indian and British soldiers who died in World War I. As I travel through Delhi, I continue to be amazed by the traffic and seemingly lack of rules. Life in this vast metropolis was a culture shock, and it took me a few days to acclimatize. I drove to Old Delhi to visit the famous Mosque of Jama Masjid, constructed in 1656. The domes are made of black and white marble, and the plaza, which used to attract horse sellers and jugglers, is now home to tourists and worshippers. The courtyard can accommodate up to 20,000 people at Friday prayer sessions. Attention is paid to keeping the area clean and free from pigeon debris. I made my way through the old city to explore the famous Red Fort. Red sandstone battlements give this imperial city its name. Built in 1639, it took 9 years to complete and was the seat of Mughal power until 1857, when the last Mughal emperor was dethroned and exiled. It was here that the national flag was hoisted for the very first time when India became an independent nation in 1947. I visited Humayun's tomb, the resting place of the second Mughal emperor. The Mughals, like their contemporaries, the Ottomans of Turkey and the Tudors of England, ruled India for 300 years. They were responsible for blending Islamic and Hindu traditions. Many of the ceilings within the domes are covered by nests of bees. Authorities are afraid to remove them for fear of damaging the art underneath. This is the Qutub Minar Tower, the tallest tower in India. While visiting this monument, I came across an amazing iron pillar, which was forged in the 4th century as a tribute to Indian metallurgy. Mysteriously, in 1700 years, it has never rusted, and no one understands why. The roads are covered with debris, causing numerous flat tires. I was fortunate my driver Muna was very proficient at switching them. Most cars use inner tubes, and there are tire repair centers every kilometer or so. With the repair tire in place, I drove to the airport for my 3.5-hour flight to the city of Varanasi. Varanasi is the holiest city in India, and bathing in the Ganges at sunrise is a ritual performed by thousands of Hindu worshippers. In the Hindu religion, tradition dictates that each person must fast during the night and bathe before breaking the fast. Hindu priests stand on platforms and offer prayers on behalf of the people. Water is offered to the sun in anticipation of a safe and prosperous day. I took a small rowboat on the Ganges to view some of the sights along the shore. Although the caste system is no longer officially in place, people who form the lower group perform laborious tasks, such as washing clothes on the rocks of the banks. There are 90 sets of steps, or ghats as they're known, along this 6-kilometer stretch of the Ganges. Festivals drawing millions of bathers to this holy site are not uncommon. The village of Varanasi has over 2 million inhabitants and very few traffic signals. Life in smaller cities is more chaotic, and I soon realized that Delhi was a very progressive city compared to the rest of the country. The one thing that stood out was the friendliness of the people. No matter whom I spoke to or what the topic was, everyone was eager to answer my questions or direct me to places of interest. I watched these individuals risk their safety in an effort to keep the temple free from grime and pollution. Hindu beliefs hold that 5 essential elements, air, water, fire, earth, and wind, created man and the universe. Shiva, one of the 3 main gods of the Hindu trinity, is represented as the embodiment of these elements. As I visited numerous temples in the area, I saw many vendors selling floral offerings to be placed inside holy buildings as a form of praise. My next stop was Sarnath, an area as sacred to Buddhists as Varanasi is to Hindus, Rome to the Catholics, and Jerusalem to the Jews. It is on this site that Buddha preached his very first sermon after gaining enlightenment in 528 BCE. Buddha was born in India as a man, and on a trek with his mother through the northern jungles, became lost and found enlightenment. His teachings became popular as they were open to anyone. This monument dates back to the 5th century CE. It is built on the site where Buddha delivered his very first sermon to his disciples. Buddhists from Southeast Asia and other countries around the world frequent this site, leaving small foil offerings on the stones. I continued my adventure through northern India with a trip to Khajuraho, a small village of 25,000 but known worldwide because of its massive temple complex. The history of this area is interesting as it is closely linked to the text of the ancient Kama Sutra. I set out to explore the famous temples which were built between the 9th and 10th century during the Chandela dynasty. Religion was a major influence in the area, and it was believed that sexual activity was unholy. The population began to decrease, and the Maharaja was concerned for the future of his people. He summoned his advisors, and it was decided to build a series of temples adorned with images depicted in the 4th century Kama Sutra text. Artists were hired and temples were constructed. The average temple was decorated with over 800 explicit statues. The Maharaja hoped that the images would entice people to rediscover intimacy, bringing an end to the population decrease. Obviously, it worked. The 20 temples at Khajuraho represent the peace and generosity of the rulers. The temples remained hidden in dense jungles until they were rediscovered in 1838. According to local myths, there are 85 temples altogether, and ongoing excavation continues to discover remnants of many hidden structures. Making my way west, I passed various forts and temples. met with several holy men, and many children. I decided to catch a train to Agra, which in itself was quite an experience. Fortunately, my porter came to my rescue, getting my suitcases to the platform while I waited for the train, which was delayed by several hours. I finally made it to Agra and stayed at the Oberoi village, where I had a spectacular view of the Taj Mahal from the balcony. The city of Agra, in an effort to minimize pollution on its famous landmark, the Taj Mahal, has banned vehicular traffic within 1 kilometer of the complex. The Taj Mahal was built by Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan in memory of his favored wife, who died in 1631 when she was only 39 years old. The Taj took 12 years to build by 25,000 workers at a cost of $1.25 million US, which in today's currency is over $70 million. The entire Taj Mahal is built of marble, each centimeter of which is inlaid with precious stones and gems. Inside the Grand Chamber are the tombs of the emperor and his wife. The Taj Mahal was built on the banks of the Yamuna River, which is dry most of the year until the rainy season from May until November, when temperatures reach 50 degrees Celsius. Before the tomb was completed, the emperor decided to build a second monument dedicated to himself. Construction was started on the opposite side of the river, and it was made of black marble. One of the king's sons decided that this undertaking was too extravagant, and after a few family squabbles, had the king imprisoned in the nearby Amer Fort. Ironically, the emperor could see the Taj Mahal as it was being constructed, but was never able to set foot inside. He watched as they laid his beloved wife to rest from the prison cell in the fort, only a mere kilometer away. Visiting the Taj Mahal was one of my highlights in India, if not my entire travel career. The history surrounding its construction makes you appreciate it even more. I thoroughly enjoyed the temples of Khajuraho and a hustle and bustle of Varanasi. We'll continue our trek of northern India right after these messages.
At Voss, your independent grocer, it's all about hometown living and shopping. Owned and operated by Port Perry's own Terry and Christine Voss, the independent grocer carries many local items to support our town and its residents.
Welcome back. From Agra, we'll head west to what is often referred to as the prettiest part of India, the state of Rajasthan. A few hours' drive from Agra is the old Mughal capital of Fatehpur Sikri. This magnificent fort was constructed in 1571 and served as the capital for 14 years. The construction is a perfect blend of Hindu and Muslim architecture. The filigree screens are intricately carved from a single block of marble, and were used by the wives of the emperor to view the daily activities without themselves being seen. This 5-story sandstone pavilion was used by the queen and her attendants to savor the cool evening breezes. My next stop as I entered Rajasthan was Ranthambore National Park, continuing my search for the Bengal tiger. I passed hundreds of monkeys, as well as a few interesting sights. Driving conditions seemed to deteriorate, but Muna's expertise kept us on track. I set out early each day in search of the legendary tigers, only to be disappointed. This area was a hunting lodge for the Hindu kings, or Maharajas as they were known. It became a national park in 1973 and is home to roller birds and sandbar, which are Indian deer. Although I saw no tigers, I did have an opportunity to see a very rare 3-toed sloth bear. Muna explained that there are very few people who have an opportunity to see this wild creature. I continued on to Jaipur, which is also known as the Pink City, mainly because a lot of the buildings have been washed in a pale rose color. I stayed at the Bagh Hotel, owned by the current Maharaja of Jaipur. This former palace has been fully restored to breathtaking opulence. Strolling along the grounds takes one back in time to an era of long ago. The courtyard was spotless and the service was incredible. Even the furniture in my room was all antiques. A fully restored turn-of-the-century steam train has been converted into a restaurant, and having dinner there was an amazing experience. While strolling the grounds, I was treated to a special visit from elephants, camels, and Indian guards dressed in the grand style of India from the early 1900s, the height of British occupation. I could see why Rudyard Kipling considered this to be his favorite hotel in India. Next to the hotel is a polo field, and it's a treat to watch the action. Once a year, the sport is played on the backs of elephants instead of horses. I took a side trip into the mountains to visit the Tiger Fort. This area was once a dense jungle and has been occupied by many different rulers. The king who built the fort had 9 wives and constructed secret passageways so he could visit any one of them without the others being aware. A beautiful view of the city of Jaipur can be seen from the fort. I stopped at a former palace in the middle of the lake, which has long been abandoned. Not to be confused with the famous Lake Palace Hotel, this structure sits vacant. There are discussions of turning it into a hotel, but the amount of work required makes the task unprofitable. Along the colorful streets of Jaipur, tuk-tuks jostle for space amid elephants. All forms of transportation are found here, competing for a spot on the narrow streets. This beautiful pink building is the Palace of Winds, which was erected in 1799. It's nothing more than a facade, and it's part of the wall around the city palace. It has become an icon for the city of Jaipur. One of the most breathtaking sights to visit in Jaipur is the Amer Fort. Built high on a mountain, the only means of transportation is by elephant along cobbled pathways. The government imposes strict rules on the owners of elephants to ensure their safety and well-being. They're only allowed to make the trek 3 times a day. Safety and care for the animals have become a priority, and although it has cut back on the number of elephants now employed, it has also ensured a safe and cruelty-free existence. This is the reception hall of this 11th century fort, where Maharajas would entertain dignitaries. An architectural marvel, the roof is not supported by center columns. Instead, it is held up only by its own weight. The Hall of Mirrors has each centimeter of space covered with mirror tiles. Ironically, this was constructed at the same time as the Hall of Mirrors in Versailles Palace in Paris, 8,000 kilometers away. It is from these windows that the Queen would throw flowers on the Maharaja as he entered the palace, and these star-shaped gardens were filled with saffron. This area is where the Queen would spend most of her time, an area known as the Queen's Apartments. One of the last sites in Jaipur that I visited was the Jantar Mantar Observatory. Constructed in 1728 by the Maharaja of Jaipur, this is the best preserved example of 5 observatories he built. The Maharaja was intrigued by the stars above and spent many hours studying them, charting them, and creating theories, many of which turned out to be true. He had created this disk that aligns the planets with the North Star. The observatory is home to the largest sundial in the world, which is duly noted in the Guinness Book of Records. I wanted to visit a carpet shop, as I'd heard that carpets from this part of the world are made with silk from Kashmir and are among the finest in the world. These craftsmen continually tie 40 knots of wool every single minute. While I was there, they were working on an order of carpets for a hotel in the southeastern US. After the rugs are washed and cleaned, excess wool is burnt off before the piles are separated and straightened. The last step is the unforgiving task of shaving the pile to make sure it is even. The fringes are tied on and the carpet is complete from many years of wear and tear. Textile manufacturing is very popular in India. The printing of fabric is done with stamps and colored dyes. I watched as this craftsman skillfully applied his trade. I left Jaipur and smiled as passers-by stared at Muna, who repaired yet another puncture. Cows in India are never harmed, as they're believed to be the mode of transportation for the god Shiva and are consequently considered sacred. As I entered Jodhpur, I immediately went to visit the Moga Fort, high on the hill on the outskirts of the city. This is certainly the most majestic of Rajasthan's forts and was a favorite of Rudyard Kipling. It was built in the mid-1400s and is made solely of sandstone. The interior of the fort has been fully restored and shows the grandeur of the life of the former Maharajas. I asked one of the guards how easy it was to tie his turban, and he actually gave me a demonstration. He explained that turbans are traditionally 9 meters or 30 feet long, which was the depth of the deepest wells in India, ensuring anyone would always be able to retrieve water. From the fort, the entire city of Jodhpur is visible, and the blue houses, occupied by members of the holy caste, stand out for all to see. The market in Jodhpur is amazing. Thousands of vendors sell everything from clothing to vegetables. And there's even a dentist who sees patients without appointments. The Lakshmi and Orion temple was built recently by an entrepreneur who owns one of India's prosperous cellular telephone companies. The temple is made entirely of marble and lies at the foot of a private palace occupied by the family of the present-day Maharaja. India is known for its fine jewelry and high quality of gold. From custom designs, craftsmen create one-of-a-kind masterpieces using skills handed down through the ages. In Hindu mythology, the first god Brahman was divided into 3 to better serve the needs of the people. Shiva, one of the 3 gods, went out one day and his wife decided to bathe. To avoid intruders, she took a small bone from her neck and made a boy who stood guard at the entrance to the bath. When Shiva returned, the boy would not let him enter. Shiva took out his sword and decapitated the lad. When his wife saw what happened and explained who the boy was, Shiva was so upset he offered to replace the head with that of an elephant and make the boy whole again. The boy's name is Ganesha, and today it is one of the most worshipped gods in the Hindu religion. On the outskirts of Jodhpur stands one of the finest castles in the world, the Umaid Bhavan Palace. It was commissioned in 1929 by the Maharaja in an effort to create work for the starving population. Initially, it was a 347-room palace, but after India gained independence in 1947, part of it was turned into a hotel. Rooms start at a mere $3,000 a night. However, that does give guests access to the underground swimming pool. The entire complex took 3,000 men 15 years to complete, which includes the laying of 12 kilometers of railroad tracks to bring transportation to the palace. I continued my trek through Rajasthan to the city of Udaipur, stopping at a well-maintained Jain temple. The Jain religion is an offshoot of Hinduism and is much stricter, with an overall goal to preserve all life. I don't often promote hotels. However, the Devi Garth in Udaipur is definitely one of the finest I've ever stayed at in all my travels around the world. It is an old fort renovated into a 39-suite hotel. It took 10 years to remodel the 300-year-old palace, and my room was made totally of marble, accented with blue lapis lazuli decorations. I had a chance to visit the famous Lake Palace in Udaipur. It's now a hotel and it's only reachable by boat. With a mere 11 suites, it's difficult to get a reservation. However, lunch in a fine private dining room is an experience not to be missed. Another of the many highlights of my adventure in India was a visit to the northern border where Tibet, Nepal, and India come together. This region is known for its tigers, and visitors are seldom disappointed. Unfortunately, the day before I left Rajasthan, the airline I was traveling on went out of business. I asked Muna if he was able to drive the 16 hours it would take us to get there. He agreed, and we set off very early. Driving in India is difficult at the best of times, but driving at night is one of the most harrowing experiences I've ever encountered. We finally arrived and I was glad to be on solid ground. Of course, the best way to see tigers is from the back of an elephant. This is great for the first 20 minutes, but after several hours it becomes quite uncomfortable. The wildlife was amazing and is well worth the journey to get there. In 1900, the tiger population in India numbered 40,000. By 1972, it had fallen to just under 2,000. The government immediately put a stop to the hunting of tigers, and today the population has increased to about 2,300. Every sight I saw in this magical country was spectacular. It is a land with amazing scenery and so much history, of which one can never get enough. For Photos and Travel, I'm Jonathan Van Bilsen. It's been my pleasure to be your tour guide today, and I look forward to our next adventure. If you enjoyed this program, please click the subscribe button and you'll never miss an episode.
Want to know what's happening in Skugog? News and lifestyle, changes in business, and all the entertainment information you'll ever need. Plus, each edition has a new Photos and Travel article. Look for your next copy in your mailbox.
At thestandardnewspaper.ca, we try to spread the good news. Even in tough times, we accept the challenge of keeping you informed. So from local contests to local happenings, let's show our support for all those who keep our communities strong.